Hey guys, it is me, the Emerald Sword, and welcome back to another video, where today I am finally reviewing Chapterhouse Dune by Frank Herbert. So, Chapterhouse Dune is a monumental book because it is the last written of Frank Herbert's original series of 6 Dune books. And it was the last novel that he wrote himself before he died. So, Chapterhouse Dune is certainly something, and what a final book to be known for. He technically did write another book before he died. I think it was called like Man of Two Worlds or something. I don't remember it, but that was the last novel that was published after he died. But Chapterhouse Dune was the last Dune novel he wrote, and therefore his last solo novel that he wrote before he died. But anyway, so Chapterhouse Dune is certainly a wild ride, and it was supposed to be the second book in a new trilogy planned by Frank Herbert. But of course, since he died, he didn't exactly get to make 7. But anyway, so the book is going up, and we will begin discussing plot details. So, if you remember, at the end of 5, our main characters, Lucilla, Duncan, now Marbella, Odrade, and Shiana, have all gotten on a no ship and have escaped Arrakis as it was currently being destroyed. The Bashar Tag, who is another one of the main characters, has been obliterated in the attack and went down with Arrakis. So Arrakis is destroyed, and our main characters are on a ship going back to a secret Bene Gesserit planet called Chapterhouse. So that's where 5 leaves off. And so, of course, in true Dune fashion, Dune has a bit of a time jump. I'm not exactly sure how long has passed, but I do have a couple context clues. Because the book opens with the Bashar Tag being revived as a Gola in the axolotl tank. And for the majority of the book, he is about 10 years old. So I'm just guessing that about 10 years have passed since 5. But anyway, so our Bene Gesserit friends, Odrade has taken up the Mother Superior title, and she is now running all of the Bene Gesserit on the planet Chapterhouse. But she has a sneaking suspicion that Marbella, who they captured at the end of the last book, may intend to return to the Honored Maiders. She maybe sounds like she wants to become a Bene Gesserit, but she may want to return to the Honored Maiders. Anyway, meanwhile, so Shanna, who is one of the main characters of the last book, she is, of course, in charge of overseeing the growth of the sandworms that they took in the last book. And now Chapterhouse is becoming part Earth-like and part desert hybrid. The desert has gotten a lot bigger since we last saw it. And yeah, so the sandworms are certainly changing the topography of the planet in hopes of making a new Arrakis. And so through all this, Lampetus, one of the Bene Gesserit education places, is destroyed. And so Lucilla, one of the main characters from the last book, manages to escape. But a rabbi introduces her to Rebecca, and Lucilla kind of like shares her mind with them because the Bene Gesserit can do that. But Lucilla is then captured by the Honored Maiders, and she talks to the great Honored Maider named Dama, who's like the one above all. And then she like gets acquainted with Dama and her assistant Logno. And then, long story short, Lucilla decides to, or refuses, I guess, to give the Honored Maiders certain information about the Bene Gesserit, and she is promptly killed for it. Yep, so one of the best characters of 5, just gone. Just gone. Yeah, anyway, so meanwhile, back on Chapterhouse, more politics stuff going on. Teg, they really need his memories back because he was like the great Bashar, and he was like a great fighter and stuff. So Shanna gives him his memories back through some very weird stuff that I will not get into, but it is very odd. And then soon after that, Odrade finds out that Shanna has actually been allies with Duncan for a long time, and maybe she is planning something. But anyway, after that, Marbella is like All right, I guess I'll become a Reverend Mother. So she goes through the spice agony, which is what all Reverend Mothers or all Bene Gesserit have to go through to become Reverend Mothers. And she survives the spice agony, and then she becomes a Reverend Mother. So there you go. And then Odrade finally decides it's time to lead the attack against the Honored Maiders. So what they do is they grab Teg, they get all their forces, and they go to Gamu, which was called Gadi Prime, which was the home of the Harkonnens. And then they just have a giant attack on the Honored Maiders. So while the attack is going out outside, Odrade meets with Daema, the Great Honored Maiden, and her assistant Logno. But Logno has a trick up her sleeve, and she wants to become the leader of the Honored Maiders. So she kills Daema, assumes control of the Honored Maiders, and then Odrade realizes, oh no, this is a trap. So basically what happens is that the Bene Gesserit are winning for a long time, and then the Honored Maiders are like, whoop! Oh, dang it, well, yeah, I guess you're defeated. So then the Bene Gesserit just have to withdraw the attack, and then they flee back to Chapterhouse, and Odrade is captured. And so on the ship back to Chapterhouse, or back on Chapterhouse, or something, I've been reading it. It's so confusing. I'll have to read them again, which I'll explain later. But anyway, so yeah, Marbella decides to become half a Reverend Mother and an Honored Mater, so she's kind of like in charge of both. And then a melee fight ensues. Logno is also killed, but Odrade is also killed. But because Odrade shared her mind with Marbella, Marbella has all of her memories and stuff. And so this leads into the very end of the book, where Marbella decides to take over everything, but Shanna, Duncan, Teg, Scytale, because he's the last of the Tylaxu. I forgot to mention that, but the Honored Maiders have destroyed Tylaxu as well. So that's also done, and Tylaxu, of course, gave him the axolotl tank, so that's how Teg came back to life. But anyway, all of them get on an O-ship, and then they fly away into the distance, and Marbella has no way to stop them. So, that was Chapterhouse Dune, and that ending was certainly something. But yeah, as I said, this was a second book in a planned new trilogy by Frank Herbert. So, of course, the cliffhanger ending of 6 would have led into 7, which would have been the final Dune book in the entire series. But, of course, as we all know from history, Frank Herbert unfortunately passed before he could actually write Dune 7. But he did leave quite a bit of heavy noting for 7. So, years later, Frank Herbert's son, Brian Herbert, found a safety deposit box with so many Dune manuscripts and spin-off ideas and all this other stuff related to Dune about it. And so he teamed up with this guy named Kevin J. Anderson, and he decided to write more Dunes. So in the 90s, they released some house books for Dune, like before the first Dune. And then in 2006 and 2007, he released Hunters of Dune and Sandworms of Dune, which are 7 and 8 respectively. So yeah, they took Frank Herbert's Dune 7, split it into 2, and then that was the series. So don't worry if you're just getting into Dune. The series has been finished. And it has been finished for a while, but Frank Herbert never got to finish it. Anyway, so, do I like Chapterhouse Dune? Yes. I mean, I can't say that I don't dislike it. It was certainly the experience. But I will say that, like a lot of other Dune books, it certainly is kind of slow for the vast majority of the book. And I forgot to mention this in 5, but 5 didn't really have a main character. It had a lot of characters that you would consider to be the main character, but it didn't have one solid main character that, like, 1 and 2 had. Or I guess even 3 and 4. So, yeah. And then 6 is no exception. I guess you could consider Odrade the main character, and you could also consider Marbella the main character. And outside of them, there's like other characters that also have like a lot of the limelight. So there's not really like a set main character for either of 5 or 6. And I think the message for 6 is a little different, because the message in 5, which I also forgot to mention, I think is free will, because the Honored Maiders bend men to their will by certain means. And while there certainly is that going on in 6, I think the message of 6 is who has power in the universe. Like, who has power over all of us and stuff like that. So I think that's what it's really about. It's like, it's about religion and power and politics and environmentalism. So I think 6 is just about who has power. And so yeah, it was certainly a wild ride of, and yeah, those are all of Frank Herbert's 6 Dune books, and keep in mind that even though I read them all, they are so confusing. So if I said anything that's inaccurate, that's my bad. I just was not informed enough or whatever. I just did not pick up on it. But what I'm thinking for next year, in 2025, that I will reread all of the Frank Herbert Dune books and several of the spin-offs, which I will review. And I won't re-review the first 6 Dune books because that would just be a little weird. But I would kind of do like a retrospective. It's like, so I've read this for the second time. Have my feelings changed about it? Like something like that. But yeah, so anyway, overall, I think that the best Dune book is first, followed by second, then third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So yeah, I think each Dune book kind of gets worse as it goes along, which is unfortunate, but it happens. Because the first is still really good, and then 6, Chapterhouse, while I enjoyed it, it was just way too far off, and it was just really weird and stuff. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, stay tuned for next year when I decide to reread the Dune books and give you my retrospective on them, reading them a second time. And also stay tuned for next year when I read Ryan Herbert's Dune books, and I kind of talk about those and see how the story truly ends for Dune. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate every single one of you for making it this far. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so, and like the video if you haven't as well. But yeah, I've been Ben from the Emerald Sword, and I will see you guys next time.